please click the subscribe button and the notification icon. It will help us a lot. Hi, this is Rodrigo from Frame Freak Studio, and this is the Creative Hustler Show. Today's guest is Hedvig HS, or VixieArts. She is an amazing illustrator, comic book artist, and she has even worked in video games from 2009 to 2014. She's currently a freelance illustrator working with animation and books, and she has pretty much her own graphic novel called Aurora the Unicorn. So I'm really happy to have her here, so welcome.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So for those who do not know about you, can you tell us a little bit about your history? How did you get started? Pretty much how did you get to this point?
I've been drawing ever since I was a little kid, and it has always been one of my favorite things to do. Professionally, I started out as a comic book artist for a Swedish children's magazine called Bamsey in 2004. I sent in my work to the publisher, and they asked me if I wanted to do some test drawings. I did and submitted them, and that's how I landed my first gig as a freelancer. So I worked with comics for a long time and also went to a comic school in Malmö, Sweden, back in 2006. And once I finished that, I applied for a job at a little game studio in Gothenburg and moved there. And I've made a variety of online games back then while freelancing, making books and magazine covers during the evenings. And in 2014, I went full-time freelance and later found myself in the animation industry, which is where I'm currently at. I do backgrounds and character designs for a feature currently in development and freelance making toys and books during the evenings.
Awesome. And well, something that happened that I saw that I was in Europe was that it is kind of weird for me to watch because coming from a place where there are really not many opportunities, Europe seems like a place full of opportunities that are not even being talked about in America as a continent. But I see that there are still a lot of people who think that art is not viable in Europe, which I don't think that's true. How was it your experience into trying to enter like kind of the whole scene of creative professionals in animation and illustration and all that?
Yeah, first of all, I didn't know that so many opportunities existed as it actually was. I was a little bit overwhelmed when I realized that there's a lot of game studios popping up, and we have game schools coming, like the Game Assembly in Malmö, and animation schools as well, and comic art schools. So when I moved to Gothenburg, I realized it's 10 different game companies, and you can make art for these companies as well. So it was a whole new world opened up for me, I guess. And once you get to know about it, all doors are open. You just send in your work, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You gotta know it exists.
Yeah, recently I was talking with this guy from Denmark that Mikkel Mainz. He was one of the founders of Sun Creature Studio, doing an original animation on their own. And he was even talking that he got this job at some point where he was a dungeon master in kind of a place where people will meet to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And it was that job exists.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. I actually have a friend who does Dungeons and Dragons, what's these little sheets called, the game sheets and character sheets and stuff. And like I said, or like you said, I had no idea these kinds of jobs exist, but once you get into it, there's so much more jobs out there than you could ever imagine. So that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And when you do work for other companies, other people, have you been working online, let's say? Have you been in projects where you are in Gothenburg, but the client is in the US and pretty much working that way?
Oh, yes. So most of that communication is through emails and stuff. So some of these employees I've never spoken to other than on emails, but it still works out pretty good. Like, it's amazing how accessible everything has become with like emails and the online community. You can sit anywhere in the world and work towards anywhere in the world. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think this is something that many people still struggle to have their image on their mind. Like they kind of hear that exists, but at some deep level, they don't believe it's going to be for them. Well, I see that is becoming like the common thing. Like it is weird to find people who is actually going to a studio, a physical studio in Los Angeles, let's say, or like most people that I know are working from their homes or working in different countries and working for Disney, Pixar, and things like that.
Yeah, your office is wherever you feel like sitting down and working.
And when you see other people, let's say, try to go the same path as you did, or a similar path, let's say, uh, have you been able to pinpoint a specific mistake that they are making, let's say, but that they are not aware that they are making?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Like when they're trying to apply for companies. Can I hear the question again, please?
Yes, pretty much the question that I'm making is that when you see people trying to follow a similar path or career as you have, uh, what are the most common mistakes that you see that people are making that they are not aware that they are making?
I think it's like a lack of self-belief. Like you gotta believe in yourself that actually take that extra step, send in your work to the companies you'd like to work for, be patient, and like believe that you can do it, as Bob Ross would say. Like, I think that's the biggest obstacle. It's probably in the mind, like changing your mindset into like an open mindset that yes, I can do it and I will do it. And it's very tricky to get out of if you're in the mindset that, oh, I can't do it, I won't do it. It's a challenge to break out of it, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you on that. I know many people who are like very talented artists, like really, really talented artists, but they do not believe that they are good. And it's
Yes.
the weirdest thing to see.
Yeah, it's like this very like scary mental cage where you don't believe that you have what it takes, but all you gotta do is like go for it. The worst things that can happen is you get a no or a no reply, but then you just go again because the experience is worth it and eventually you will succeed. Just believe in it and go forward.
Yes, and yeah, again, like it's weird because I know I understand like if you are like a really good artist and you're in an environment with where nobody's paying you attention or nobody's complimenting your art and things like that. But I see people who are like really damn good artists who believe that they are not good enough and they are completely surrounded by people telling them like, holy shit, I would like to have your skills, like I would love to be at this level, and just bathing them in compliments and they still don't believe that they are good enough.
Yeah, it is a very like difficult mental like cage in a way, or like a trap, and it takes a lot of practice to get out of it. So yeah, but um yes, I've, I've actually been in the situation myself. Like I didn't believe that I could do. I used to believe that I need to be like found by someone else or something outside of me. Like, what do you call it? Uh, like picked up by some outside studio or stuff to be able to make what I want to make. But then, well, this started when I was involved in a project that I was like super engaged with or like super happy about, and I really worked uh, like I really put my heart and soul into it. I was really passionate about it, but the project ended up being shelved, and that made my self-confidence or confidence in my abilities really drop. Like I thought, oh, I wasn't good enough, or the work I did wasn't good enough because they didn't pick it up. and so on. But as painful as that experience was, that in itself made me realize that I can't be dependent on others or outside forces to achieve what I want. So that project was kind of a catalyst for me to start thinking about my own projects and how to make them a reality with or without the involvement of others. There's so many different ways to make stuff happen nowadays, as we talked about earlier. So if one option doesn't work out, there's always another one to try.
Yeah, definitely. And you just mentioned a really important point that I haven't seen in all the interviews that we have done yet, which is this idea that somebody else has to give you the recognition that you're good enough, that like a studio has to discover you or something like that. And
Exactly, you're looking for like something outside of you to validate your worth instead of getting that worth from within yourself, like being self-reliant, that you can do it if you want to.
yeah, and this is kind of tricky because like the industry has been like one of the good parts is that the industry has become available to pretty much everyone in the world who is good enough. So as we were talking that we can be in our own houses in any country in the world and still work for companies like Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, whatever. But also one of the things that has happened because of that turn is that it is way less possible that this situation where an studio will discover you, an agent will discover you, or something like that will happen, because now that the opportunity is open for everybody, now it has become the responsibility of the artist to pitch themselves, to look for the opportunities themselves, to go and to recruiters and portfolio reviews and find the people that can hire them themselves, and they can, so that they have to become their own salesmen. And in this kind of a scenario, then as you say, you cannot look for something outside of yourself. You have to become your own authority.
Yeah.
and and well, I've seen, I look for a couple of interviews of you, and I see that you are naturally a very shy person. I can relate to that because I used to be like that for many years, and because of that, I understand how scary it could be, because many artists are very introverted and shy people, which are not the same things, but sometimes they can be both. And
Yeah.
and that puts them in a really hard situation compared to uh, other artists who are more extroverted, more loud, more secure, and be able to pitch themselves better. So, uh, how do you pretty much go into getting the skills of actually putting yourself out there and looking for the opportunities, and pretty much fight through all this new model that is happening in the world?
Yeah. Well, one great advice that I got a while ago from an old mentor of mine was to challenge yourself. It's worth it. And one of my biggest challenges has always been like, yeah, getting out there, putting myself on stage, or like being loud and being clear and stuff. But I feel like every time I actually do, I feel a big sense of reward. Like I did it. I dared. It may not have been perfect, but I actually challenged my fears. And I feel like, that really, it makes you grow as a person when you just face the fear and go through it, because you come out a stronger person on the other side.
Yes, and this doesn't have to be like a huge challenge in the beginning. It can be very very small. You can see these challenges like, let's say, going to a gym and you want to start lifting weights. So you don't start at 500 pounds.
No.
You start with whatever you can, and then you keep pushing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Right?
Exactly. You gradually get yourself used to like the challenge. You start small and then you build up. And then, yeah, who knows? Maybe you'll end up at the big stage at the end.
Definitely. Something that I liked about I before going into the kind of getting the interest of getting into the creative industry and all that, I was more into the entrepreneurial world. And something that I like about them is that they are very systematic about how they go about things. They do not try to leave everything to just, let's say, uh, willpower
Luck.
or
Yeah.
yeah, luck, willpower, or even their own emotions. They know that they fail a lot, like they know that they have their own faults. So, for example, there is this guy, Tim Ferriss, who is, if you look at his books and all that, he has a very system thinking mindset. And he was explaining once because in entrepreneurship, many times you have to give your own pitch of your service, of your product, or whatever you're doing. So he says like, okay, like it is stupid to think that uh, you are going to get in the front of the opportunity of your life and you already will know how to pitch perfectly. Like you have to get practice on the, and you can get the practice on over the very small things. So, for example, something that he does or he did in the beginning to kind of get comfortable into negotiating deals and things like that was that he will go to, let's say, a Starbucks or Costa Coffee or whatever, and he will, when he will ask for the coffee, he will ask if he could get like a any type of discount just because. Like,
Yeah. A
and,
small.
and yeah, it sounds like a silly situation, but if you are in the middle of that, like there is this uh, self awareness, and you don't want to appear cheap to everybody else and all that kind of stuff. But even though if this is a very simple situation, like if you keep doing this constantly over and over and over and over for many days, weeks, months, eventually you will see that you become very comfortable in doing this, and that also you can get very skilled in doing this as well, so it doesn't look weird. And then now you may seem like, okay, yeah, it's just a cup of coffee, and maybe you just save a couple of cents on it, but at the same time, like you just have developed in your mind better skills to negotiating a deal.
Yeah, definitely. Like you expose yourself to a situation that makes you feel uncomfortable, and you just do it over and over and over again. And after a while, you won't fear it anymore. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and I went something like that many years ago when I was trying to push myself into be more social. In the beginning, I would just ask the time for to people, and obviously that became weird when everybody had phones and people stopped using watches. But I pretty much pulled a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more until it ended up in this challenge where I had to go to a mall and pretty much walk through the whole mall singing. Uh, and I was singing in the rain.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you get a lot of reactions?
Oh yes, even even some that I didn't expect. Them, like some girls were laughing, kind of uh, kind of went into me a little bit, and I was like, oh well, that I didn't expect that at all.
That's
but
awesome.
but yeah, it was after that, like after doing something crazy like that, uh, many of other situations seemed really easy, and obviously I didn't did that from the get go. I did many other stuff before that, but
Yeah, but that's great advice for anybody who wants to like get over their anxiety.
yeah, definitely, and it's a like it's very safe as well. Like for example, my country, I am from El Salvador, so if you see the news, you will see that it's not the safest place to live in the world, and even that experiment was safe enough. So if you live in any other place uh, that is not as bad as here, uh, that is something that you can also try to look forward to do, and and I can tell you like there will be many other situations where uh, that is not going to be that is not going to look like extreme or that is going to be very easy to go about. And I learned I and my exercise was like a diminished one because the guy that I learned it from uh, if you look him like this is like a very strong masculine guy, and he pretty much put himself in a tutu, in a dress for ballet,
That's
and
awesome.
he had a dildo strapped to his forehead, and he had to go a whole day into a city dressed like that.
Oh, wow. That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so compared to that, what I did was not as crazy as that.
Oh, but
But
one step on the way there, maybe.
yeah, definitely. And well, coming back to your experience, uh, when you started this career, well, in my case, there were a lot of images that I thought that were going to happen, bad things that were going to happen when I started building a business that they never happened, and the things that were really hard were things that I never even expected. So, on the spirit of finding out the things that we don't know, what was something that you didn't expect it at all in your career that popped up and became really, really important?
Oh yeah, I never expected Instagram to be like become such a large deal for me. Like I remember when I first got Instagram back in 2013, I'd imagined I'd use it as like an online photo album for my closest friends or something. And I gradually started to post art on there, and then things really took off in a way that I never would have expected when I started my account. So that's definitely something that was totally unexpected and turned into like totally something else than what I thought it would. So that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot to be done in Instagram for artists. There, I know many people who have grown, uh, professionally speaking, a lot by just posting there every day.
Yeah, definitely. And it's such a nice and friendly community as well. Everybody's so sweet and welcoming, and it's a great way to get your art out there. So,
Nice. And have you ever had like a failure or something that looked like a failure that actually had set you up for later success in the future?
uh, yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit or briefly earlier. I worked on this project a few years ago that I was really, really excited about, and I put all this energy into it, and I was like super pumped. This is going to be awesome. And then the project didn't or ended up not happening, and I was really, really down because of this. Like I started doubting myself. But as I said, like that experience made me realize that I can't be dependent on others or outside forces to achieve what I want. So that project kind of made me start thinking about my own stuff and how to make like them a reality with or without the involvement of others.
And probably this question that I'm going to look do is on the same thing, but pretty much on the same topic. But uh, in the last years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has improved a lot your life?
Oh yeah, that was like challenge yourself. Definitely, that has really improved my life because I feel like I learn and grow a lot from just putting myself out there and challenging myself. So yeah.
And on this idea of being kind of becoming the own authority of your own life, and pretty much stopping on looking external things to validate your worth. Uh, how did it went for you? Pretty much, how did you go about developing this kind of mindset for yourself?
Um, well, I started focusing on like my own projects and writing down like the aftermath of like the failures. I started to like go through my emotions and like what had happened, and I took it out creatively. So I wrote down like stories, and I decided to write down what I felt and turn it into like something tangible. Many of the greatest stories out there come from painful situations, and I think making something creative out of it is or with the intention of helping others who might be in a similar situation is a very helpful outlet. So when I did that, it's crazy how things works sometimes. Like I did that with like this comic that I told you about that I made, Aurora. It was originally like a little script I wrote down one evening, and I put it off for like a week. And next week, I got an email from an editor who asked if I had a script that I would want to make something out of. And it was so random how all that happened. But as I, started focusing on one of my own projects, stuff just seemed to weirdly click, if that makes sense. So that opportunity presented itself, and I was like, yeah, I wrote this script like a week ago. Can I make a comic out of it? And he was like, sure. So fast forward a year, and I had my own graphic novel finished.
Nice. And can you talk us a little bit more about your own graphic novel?
Yeah, so it's about this unicorn who faces like a bit of a harsh time, and she has to like think or go inward and figure out like how to solve the situation and find the courage to stand up for like her own or herself. And yeah, at the end she's grown as a character, and she stands up for herself and makes peace with this event and that had happened.
Nice. So, this question might be a little bit interesting, but whenever you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do to go back to your center to keep on working?
I try to do something totally like non-art related. Well, I go for a walk or I play a video game. Horizon Zero Dawn is great. Have you played that one?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that one is awesome. And the new Spider-Man game as well. Like, just something that keeps me off from what I was doing. Try to reset my mind. And I've also gotten into some bullet journal decorating recently. Like, it's relaxing since you get to be creative, but the pressure of performing is taken off because the pages that I do, I don't have to show them to anyone, so they don't have to look good. But it gets me into this like playful mood, and that is something that I can then later take back when I get to go back to what I was yeah, what I was.
So this is a recommendation if you're a bit masochist, but if you really, really want to take your mind off of something, I would highly recommend this game called Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight. All right, how do you play it?
Pretty much it's an indie game. I interviewed I interviewed two of the creators a while ago, uh, because first of all, it's one of the pieces of art that I think that I admire the most, because these guys pretty much launched a Kickstarter. They got like about $46,000, something like that, uh, and pretty much they locked up themselves into a basement until they finished the game. And these were only four guys: one developer, one animator who pretty much did all the animations in Photoshop so he could save some extra money.
What? That's awesome.
Yes, and there was the guy from the music and the marketer. So pretty much you like just one guy for the coding, one guy for the arts and animation, one guy for music, one guy for movie the business.
I think that's awesome how much you can make like with just 4 people and then create a whole game. That's crazy awesome.
And it is huge. Like the game is huge, and it's only $16. Doing a little bit of promotion here, but uh, I was like completely speechless when I saw the how big the game was, how detailed it was, and pretty much. But the thing again, like if you really want to take your mind off, there will be some moments to relax you there. But the game is really, really hard, so you have to be a bit of masochist because you're going to get a lot of frustration.
All right. Oh, well, I'll definitely check it out. It sounds really fun.
Yeah, and well, coming back to this topic of all these new things that are happening, uh, what are some great new opportunities or resources that you have seen that not many people are aware that they exist? Like, for example, events, scholarships, courses.
Um, I think people might know about it, but I'm still super excited. So I'm going to take the opportunity to say Lightbox Expo. It's this new convention, and it's having its first event in September in LA. So a lot of amazing artists are going, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely check that one out.
Oh, definitely. I'm going to be there, so hopefully I will see you there.
Yeah, awesome.
So this is going to be a little bit of a hard question, probably the hardest that I ever make. But let's say that you wake up tomorrow in a different dimension, and you have your house, you have your tools, computer, everything that you need to do art, but you don't have your art. Like all the art pieces that you have ever done are gone. Nobody knows about you, and you have $500 in your pocket. What do you do to get back to this position, professionally speaking, as soon as possible?
Oh, yeah. I think I would put together like a portfolio as quick as possible and start sending it out to companies that make the stuff that I like. And I'd also make sure to attend conventions and meet people in the industry. Like, yeah. And I think that's pretty much it.
Pretty much straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing that I think many people do not understand, that some of the times advancing on this career or many other things is very easy. Like, well, let's not easy, simple. Like the things that you have to do are simple. That, but simple doesn't mean easy. It
No,
just
it's
sometimes,
all about, oh,
yeah,
sorry. It's all about like getting over that prison of the mind. Like, if you think you can't do it, you probably can't, but you gotta think that you can do it because then you can. And that's way easier said than done. It's very like sometimes very difficult when your mind is working against you, but if you can get your mind to work for you, you'll be on your way in no time.
definitely. I like to always, when this topic comes around, I always like to say to people to make them understand that actually gaining confidence in yourself and being able to put yourself forward is not about gaining something. It's not about something that you get by pursuing a job or I don't know, anything else. It's actually you. It's something that happens when you eliminate the doubts, the negative thinking, uh, all this, all these thoughts that are pretty much pushing you forward. And if you are able to eliminate that and stop that kind of thinking, then the confidence will naturally come out.
Yes, I agree.
And yeah, definitely. I think again, many of these things are very simple to do. For example, it's very simple to just put a portfolio and reach out to somebody, let's say an HR uh, department, or look in LinkedIn who is working for human resources in some studio that you want to work with or something like that. Send your portfolio, ask for a review, and but of course it's scary. It's emotionally hard to do that, but it's simple to do that. You just have to send it, and they will tell you, okay, this is what we're looking for. This is where you're missing that. This is if you want to work here. This is the things that you gotta get better at, and
Yeah.
it's important to get it because many people I know that they have all these ideas of all the things that they need to have in order to get in the studios, and they are not even looking for that.
No, that's it's, uh, it's just about getting out there, getting the feedback, and like taking every opportunity you can to learn. Just see everything as an experience that'll help you grow towards like what you want.
And on a question that I forgot to make before, what made you go into choose to be a freelancer?
When I did, I'd been working. This was back in 2014, and I'd been working with games then for a couple of years, and this was like a 9 to 5 job, and I was very happy there too. But when I've been doing the same thing for like a long time, I felt like I wanted to, well, challenge myself. So I figured, yeah, I want to try. I want to see if I can do this. So I quit my job and started my own company, and it worked out.
Nice. And on that end of starting your own company, can you tell us a little bit about the experience of pretty much, well, becoming an entrepreneur, let's say?
Yeah, it was a bit of paperwork, but I got an accountant to help me sort through all the numbers and stuff because I don't like numbers. So that's a great thing to know, that if you want somebody to take care of numbers and stuff, get an accountant. That's one of the best investments I've ever done. Like, whenever I get my number papers, I just give it to her and she says, "Oh, numbers." And I said, "Yeah, take my money, take my numbers." Awesome. It,
Yeah, that is something that most people don't get, that they are trying to do absolutely everything themselves, and it's like, if you want speed, let's say, if you want to get things done fast, or then the best thing to go, or the best way to go about this is that if you suck at something, don't try to become good at it. Get somebody who is already good at that, and then focus on whatever you are good at.
Yes, exactly. There's nothing wrong with asking for help and asking for advice from people who are already doing it or like working full-time freelance. And I started sending out my portfolio to a couple of companies. I went to some book fairs and stuff, and after a while I got some regular customers. So I make a book series right now, so I have guaranteed work a couple of times a year, and then I do other works like on top of that. So it's, once you find the returning customers, it's easy. Yeah, it just gets easier from there.
Nice. And is there any last advice that you would like to give uh, to people listening to us that we haven't talked into this interview yet?
Any last advice?
Yes, any
Um,
advice or any that you think something that we didn't talk about that is really important?
um, let's see. Well, some general advice, which I think has helped me a lot, is to be open for feedback and know that it's a natural part of any project, and be kind to people, including yourself, because whatever you put out comes back at you. So, and you never know who will be your future friend, boss, employee, coworker, and so on. And you never know where you or anyone else will end up. Things might turn out even better than you expect. So your attitude is just as important as your work.
That is really true. Like something that is a recurrent topic whenever I interview people who have founded the studios or businesses uh, in this area is that they all tell me, with no exception, that they will rather pick somebody with the right attitude, but that is not, let's say, polished enough in art, and they will rather spend 5 years developing that person into the skills, as long as they have the right attitude, than taking an amazing talent that has the wrong attitude.
Yeah, yeah. Attitude is like a big chunk of it. Like, you gotta be willing to take feedback and be willing to improve. Because if you're not, then it, you won't improve.
Yeah, definitely. And if people want to find you online, where would be the best place to do so?
I'm on Instagram under the handle VixieArts, and I'm also on Twitter and Facebook, and same handle there, VixieArts, on all of them.
Awesome. Uh, I definitely thank you for taking your time and being here and pretty much talking to us about all your experiences, all your knowledge. It really means a lot to me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this has been the last episode of the Creative Hustler Show. If you liked it, please share it with your friends, and also click the like button below. Uh, until the next time.